I've learned that if we push ourselves beyond what's healthy, we end up in a worse position than we were in before. There's never a time to push the limits of putting yourself and your health in danger. True confidence, true limitlessness is found when you know you're capable and you choose to quit. Welcome to the Dangerous Women podcast, where the intersection of fierceness and femininity fuels empowerment. Our goal is to provide women with insights to unleash their power. Grounded in the 7 principles of self-confidence, we guide women to embrace their duality, delicate as a flower, yet powerful as a bomb. I'm your host, Colleen Conlon, inviting you to join me as we explore topics on health and wellness, empowering you to embody the essence of your dangerous woman. "13 moves before college, 10 years struggling with an eating disorder, 7 career shifts within 5 years, 4 abdominal surgeries, and 1 lonely girl." That girl was me. I moved when I went into the 6th grade from a small town in New Hampshire to an even smaller town in Maine. 3 elementary schools merged together, and I was the one kid who knew nobody. Soon enough, I met my best friend, Anna. And she was so cool, like cool clothes, cool energy, lots of friends. And looking back, I initially fit in well. I mean, I was a cool kid too. No problem going up to new kids, and I could make friends easily. I was so good at the initial introduction of making friends that at the last school I transferred to, my teacher thought I was an actual witch, like abracadabra, because of my power to make friends. 3 months later, after spending every other Thursday afternoon with the school psychologist, it was made clear I was not a witch. My teacher retired, and I missed out on the fundamental principles of grammar and reading comprehension, and that'll show up later. So one day, Anna tells me that everybody would like me so much better if I was skinny. She took me to the bathroom to teach me how to make myself throw up, and my confidence dropped in that statement. I went from being social to very private. I could no longer put myself out there for the fear of being judged. From 12 to 25 years old, I went through life thinking I needed to be liked by others to be happy. But I learned that to be happy, I just needed to get me to like me. And the way I found that out was by asking for help. And in doing so, I found Kettlebells, and they helped transform my life. It has been during my time training with kettlebells I've realized I have no limits. It is not an understatement to say kettlebells have transformed my life, because I went from feeling weak, incapable, and alone to feeling strong, capable, and supported, which has allowed me to become limitless. Today, I hold 2 Guinness World Records. I am a published author. I run a 6-figure virtual fitness business, and I got here because I realized the most important thing to do, other than putting in the work and believing yourself, is being able to ask for help. I have a mantra I use when I'm trying to pump myself up. I say, I am strong, I am capable, I can do this. And I start visualizing what it is I'm trying to achieve, and voila, over time I do it. These words have allowed me to find my fierceness. Now, I know I'm strong, and what I've learned, especially over the past 4 years, is that there is strength in my vulnerabilities. Can I tell you a story? Since Anna made that comment about my weight, I started waking up at 4 a.m. to work out before school. I'd cut class to go do crunches in the bathroom, and this went on for years. When I was 17, I woke up one day with crazy cramps. I was rushed to the hospital, and I had 3 of my 4 abdominal surgeries within a month and a half of each other. They removed my appendix, ovarian cysts, I had an abscess, and then they ended up taking out my 1 ovary and fallopian tube. It took close to 3 months before I could sit up and walk on my own again. I ended up being put on birth control 24/7 after that in the hopes that if I didn't ovulate, I'd get to keep the other ovary. The worst part about all of these surgeries to me at the time was the fact that I didn't get to work out. Once I could get back to working out, I noticed if I would push myself too intensely, I would get these crazy cramps that would leave me paralyzed on the floor. I felt like this fragile, weak being. It was as if I could break at any moment. And then when I became sexually active, things got way worse. I would be in so much pain after reaching an orgasm to the point of crying toppled over on the bathroom floor anywhere between 5 to 60 minutes. It made having sex feel like a bad and a scary thing. I just wanted to be left alone. And I met my husband when I was 19. Up until the pandemic, we spent a lot of our relationship away from each other. We had long hours working and commuting where it was easy to use the excuse of, I'm too tired, to avoid sex. I recall going to a few gynecologists to ask if they could help get me out of the pain, and they did not help. One doctor said, just have a glass of wine, it'll relax you. Another had the audacity to say, just have a baby. Giving birth will change everything down there and possibly get you out of pain. I went home after that appointment feeling so disappointed that I couldn't handle the pain I was in. The doctors didn't seem to think it was a big deal. I remember thinking, I must be broken. So I just started avoiding sex. Until 2020 when the pandemic hit. Two big things happened during this time. I started creating my virtual fitness business and was no longer running around New York City like a gym gypsy. Therefore, I was able to take my own training way more seriously. This is when all the talk about a world record came into play. More on that later. Second, I could no longer use the excuse of being tired from my commute as a way to avoid sex. During this time, the pain was getting worse. There would be days where I would be sitting on the couch and get a crazy cramping attack, leaving me in tears. My husband and I were talking about me finding another gynecologist to talk to, and I ended up doing a Google search and found a pelvic floor rehabilitation center instead. After my first exam, the doctor told me the plan. I would be working with a pelvic floor PT to help release the muscles, but first I would need to do 2 months worth of injections. I remember asking about what that meant and my eyes got so big. The therapy required somebody actually entering my vagina to manually massage the muscles, and the injections meant taking a needle the length of my forearm and injecting them into my vulva. I had already been through so much trauma in that region of my body. The last thing I wanted to do was any of this. When I told my husband about the treatment, he said, you don't have to, but imagine what could happen if you did. There was potential for less, if no, random cramping. I could train more intensely without holding back. I could maybe even have a normal sex life with my husband. So I told the doctor I was all in, and the next thing she said was, you will need to stop lifting kettlebells, and my heart broke. This was the one thing that I had during this time that made me feel good so long as I didn't push it. But it was just 2 months. I was so sad knowing what progress I would lose during that time, but I knew in the grand scheme, there was so much to gain in a fuller picture of my life. So fast forward, I go through everything as planned by the doctor, and I am able to train harder than previously. There's way less frequency of random cramping, and I'm able to enjoy a pain-free sex life with my husband. I used to think surviving pain made me strong. Now I know that being vulnerable and asking for help, especially continuing to ask others until you find someone who doesn't dismiss you, allows you to become stronger. Being vulnerable can be scary. It can leave us feeling less than, weak, scared, and judged. But what would happen if you acknowledged that, yes, I am strong? And I know when I face my vulnerabilities, I can become a stronger and more whole version of myself. Asking for help starts with figuring out, what do I want and how badly do I want it? If you start there, you'll face your vulnerabilities and you can grow. So take out something you can write with and write down the following questions. What do you want? How badly do you want it? And will it be worth going through the process in order to obtain the goal? If the answer is yes, you do it and you will be stronger than ever. Listen to this next piece. I am capable, but I do not need to finish what I start. I am capable and I know when to quit. I told you I broke a world record. It was for the heaviest weight lifted via Turkish get-up in 1 hour. But you should know I also set the record. I broke it because I totally misread the details, and a week before my first attempt, I realized I wasn't fully prepared. Now, maybe if my teacher didn't call me a witch, my reading comprehension would have been a little bit better, and I would have only had to have done this one time. So typically the Turkish get-up is performed using 2 hands to pick up the bell and place it back down. But for Guinness, you could only use 1 hand to pick it up and put it down. I was not prepared for that part. So 6 months of training soon turned into a year of training for this one event. I did thousands of Turkish get-ups that year, some sessions being 90 minutes straight of get-ups nonstop. A month before my second attempt, my forearms were getting fried. I was covered in black and blues. My first record, I did 122 reps in the hour with 16 kilos. The second, I ended up doing 188 reps with the 16 kilo bell. I felt so dumb going into the first attempt. I mean, how could I misread the details? Going back a second time, I was proving to myself just how capable I was, not just physically, but mentally. And I went far. That hour, the first time, it wasn't so bad. 122 reps came out to about 2 reps a minute. I'd get 30-ish seconds to rest every minute, but doing 188 reps meant averaging 3 reps a minute. It was miserable, yet invigorating. I realized I can do difficult things, be it physical or mental. Yes, I can. What would life be like if you could get that toned look? You could have physical superhuman strength by training with just 2 kettlebells at home. What would happen if you were on a program that strengthens self-awareness and courage so that you can develop a deeper connection and trust to self? What about this? What if you could be in a community with other women where you are encouraged to be assertive and resilient to build mental and physical strength? If you're waiting to hear what the offer is, this is it. Swing to Snatch, a 13-week kettlebell intensive, is my signature course that empowers women to get started with kettlebells. Work with me live in a virtual container guaranteed to grant you kettlebell queen status. To learn more, visit www.colleenconlon.com. The biggest saving grace for that was having my kettlebell coach. Having her help that year was something that kept me accountable, safe, and inspired. And something I will never forget her telling me was this: Colleen, records are meant to be broken. And a week later, my record went public, and a month after, it was beaten. I started to get messages saying stuff like, well, when will you get your title back? I know she beat you, and now I'm planning to beat her. And part of me thought to myself, should I do it? And then looking down at my still bruised forearms, I thought to myself, I know if I wanted to train to do this, I am capable. I know at this point I can, but I don't want to. I already proved to myself what I could do. I do not need to make my training about constantly maintaining a title. And that felt like a growth moment. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to. When we start to find our fierceness and realize just how capable we are, regardless of the obstacles we come across, and then choose to grant ourselves grace to know when it's okay to step away, that's when we elevate towards becoming limitless. I knew what I was capable of, and I knew when to quit. I've learned that if we push ourselves beyond what's healthy, we end up in a worse position than we were in before. There's never a time to push the limits of putting yourself and your health in danger. True confidence, true limitlessness is found when you know you're capable and you choose to quit. I have more for you to write down. What's one thing you plan to quit today? Is there something that you're doing that's putting yourself in a less healthy situation than you could be in? Now, keep in mind, quitting doesn't mean you are less than. It doesn't make you a quitter to quit. In this capacity, it means you're caring about yourself enough to be removing something that is no longer serving you for the better. Write it down. That mantra again. I am strong. I am capable. I can do this. That last line to me, I can do this, translates to I am limitless. And I don't have to do it on my own. Before we dive into it, just think about the people who were involved with these stories I've shared so far. We do not accomplish big things alone. We look up to the expert. We look to a peer, or we look around for our community, and that's where we become limitless. Say this with me. I can do this. And I don't have to do it alone. My catalyst to asking for help was the kettlebell. I BS'd my way into managing a kettlebell studio in New York City. I was teaching some classes in addition to managing, and one of the trainers came up to me one day, called me out for not knowing what I was doing, for his fear was me hurting someone because of it. He offered to teach me how to use kettlebells, and slowly but surely things changed. I changed. I began asking for help and seeing just how strong, capable, and limitless I was. Because I started putting my ego to the side and asked for help, I have these records. I created a 6-figure business. I wrote a book. The list goes on and on. But the biggest has been falling in love with myself through the process. And doing that has made me realize that to find happiness in this life isn't about getting other people to like you. It's about you learning to like you. One of my favorite quotes is an African proverb: to go fast, go alone, but to go far, go together. I have hired coaches, kettlebell coaches, nutrition coaches, business coaches, and look how far I've gone. Help is the secret sauce to accomplishing what seems impossible. We are all limitless, and that feeling comes when we come together with others and they begin to highlight us, shine a light on us in a way we haven't seen ourselves. A spark is all it takes to light a fire. More action steps. Write this down. Who are 3 people that you know, like, and trust that you want to feel supported by? This could be a friend or family member, or maybe it's a coach, maybe it's someone who inspires you on social media. Write down 3 names now. Your network will support you, and you get to create your own dream team. So, who are 3 different people who you would love to have support from on your journey towards feeling limitless? I am strong, and there's more strength to find when I am vulnerable. I am capable, and I know when to quit. I can do this, and I don't have to do it alone. When you begin to adapt this mindset, you will know, yes, I can. And how do we get there? We ask for help. So, how do we find the right help? Again, we have to be honest with ourselves. Ask yourself, what do you want? How bad do you want it? Are you willing to do what it takes every day? And then you find people that you know, you like, you trust, and you ask, what have they accomplished for themselves and others? And do they believe that they could help me? Last, you put your game plan into action and you commit to the plan. Now let's look at your paper, because you have these action steps. You've got 3 questions, 1 thing to quit, and 3 people to talk to. When you take these action steps, you will find that you are stronger, more capable, and fiercer than you ever imagined. Now you get to move on with the rest of your day believing you have the potential to become limitless when you ask for help. Thank you for listening to the Dangerous Women podcast. If you had any groundbreaking takeaways from today's episode, please tag us on social at the Dangerous Women podcast. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe below.